Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the next speaker in today's Leadership Lottery, our very own Archbold Prize. She is our particularly powerfully principled and passionate publicist and pace-setting pioneer of practical, positive and praiseworthy patterns. Prise your eyes to the screen for a short video and then Tori will tell her story. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Tori Archbold.
Well, firstly, I just want to say thank you to everyone for bringing your energy to the leadership series. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I know how valuable everyone's time is, so thank you. So you may think that my life is glamorous, and in many ways it is. For me, Victoria's Secret was definitely a bucket list client, and last year I got to be a part of the greatest runway show in the world. It was exciting, it was exhilarating, there was an incredibly passionate team surrounding us, but the takeout for me was everyone was incredibly hardworking. They also say a picture tells 1,000 words, and while these images are broadcast around the world, there's a different set of values that people have behind the scenes. So where did my journey begin and where do my values lie? My journey began 20 years ago with a dream and a vision like many of you in the room today. I wanted to work with global brands and I wanted to travel the world. And I thought, I want to start my own business. How did I do that? I started with my foundation, which is my values of passion, integrity, and delivery. My first client was David Jones. I was lucky enough to launch Megan Gall as the face of David Jones, travel around Australia with her and set up the most strategic partnership between David Jones and an ambassador in Australian history. Soon after, I was approached by Myer. It was a store wars. The store wars were dominating every single national newspaper and also every television network in Australia. They wanted to do something different, and they thought that they had a secret weapon. Enter Jennifer Hawkins. She had just won Miss Universe. Donald Trump, at that point in time, owned Miss Universe. Celebrity Apprentice was one of the most watched shows in the world. I said to Myer, we need to be disruptive. We need to do something different. And they said, well, how are you going to do that, Tori? And I said to them, we need to value the partners. The partners are the people, the suppliers, the people who buy from you. Everyone needs to be valued. Why don't we take Jennifer Hawkins to New York? After much deliberation, they said to me, you've got a small budget, but if you can deliver, we will do this. So off Jen and I went to New York. We took all the major designers over there who also wanted global domination. Yes, we met Donald Trump. What do I think of Donald Trump? Not much. But what I did like about Donald Trump was his family. And Ivanka was a standout, and she definitely is empowering women around the world today. And it was a pleasure to meet her. What this trip did for Myer was it showed value. It showed the partners within the business and the partners that they wanted to attract that they were serious about relationships. They were passionate about making changes. The strategy that I put in place for this retailer, again, it was groundbreaking news. Everything was fed back into the Australian market. And they ended up winning the store wars and having the best portfolio of fashion designers that they ever could have wished for. A while later, I'm celebrating with my team. Actually, if I'm honest, it's a couple of years later. And we're drinking in Australia Square. And one of the girls says to me, "Tori, Jesus called." And I said, "What do you mean Jesus called?" And I thought after a few drinks she was joking. I said, "What's the number code?" It ended up being from Spain. I was lucky enough to receive a call from Jesus Echeverria, the most powerful man in communications in the world, and the 2IC for a company called Inditex. Jesus wanted to launch Zara. Well, I was a major Zara fan because, of course, when I started my business, I wanted to travel the world and I wanted to work with the world's best global brands. This was a journey of a lifetime. When he finally said yes, I was in LA. I didn't tell him that. His team was in Spain and my team were in Sydney. We basically threw everything that we had at this. We launched within 6 weeks. It ended up being the most successful launch in Australian retail history. We did $1 million worth of sales on the first day that the doors opened, and we had 22,000 people through the doors. It was an incredible, exhilarating feeling. But behind closed doors for me, life was very different. In fact, it was probably not what a lot of you think it was. On one hand, I'm launching global brands and I lead a very glamorous life. And on the other, I am a mother to my daughter Bella. Excuse me while I pace around because this is still quite traumatic for me to speak about. For 12 years, I was stalked, harassed, intimidated, and threatened by my daughter's father. I decided at 9 months old that I was going to leave him, and I had no idea what I unleashed. I literally unleashed a beast. And if you look at what Rosie Batty went through, or you've watched the Netflix series, Dirty John, that was my life. Only that part of my life I couldn't talk about. I felt ashamed. I couldn't believe this was going on. I felt I was on a treadmill. 1 in 4 women in Australia have experienced emotional and psychological abuse. Now, I stand before you today as a woman saying this, but I also acknowledge that many men in the room as well may have had a similar experience. And it wasn't until last year that one of my long-term clients, Marie Claire magazine, and one of the most powerful women's magazines in the world, approached me and they said, "Tori, we'd love to do a story on you." And I said, "Oh, it's a bit of a privilege, thank you. What would that story be?" "We want to do a story on you being a single mum running a global business." And I said, Well, I knew that I had another story to tell. And so I said to the editor, "Who's the writer?" And she told me. And I said, "I'd like to have a conversation with her because I feel that I have a more powerful story to tell." So I had an interview and we had a very off-the-record conversation. And I trusted Marie Claire to tell my story authentically. It was the best decision of my life. I truly stepped into my power. 10% of that story has been published. But what happened after this was I was approached by many major media outlets who were interested in my story because they believed it would inspire and empower others. And this is what happened.
From the outside looking in, our next guest appeared to have the ideal life. She's one of Australia's most successful publicists, managing celebrities and some of the world's biggest brands. She's a mother and has a wide circle of friends. But little did anyone know, behind closed doors, Tori Archbold was in deep trouble. For more than a decade, she was being stalked and harassed by her ex-partner.
It was a very toxic environment, very highly stressful.
Now, Tori is hoping to help other women through their own difficult situations with her very own platform, Powerful Steps.
We're launching a series of workshops to basically inspire, encourage and empower women to take those powerful steps to come out the other side.
Since sharing your story, you've had a phenomenal response from women. I think particularly women in the corporate world, they can have this really tough exterior, can't they?
Be courageous, be fearless, but most importantly, be yourself. And now with Powerful Steps, we're working with many major corporations and their leadership teams. And a lot of these women are in board positions, they're in director roles. They have these incredible teams that they need to inspire. There are so many different support systems in Australia that you can lean on. But in my situation, which is the same as many corporate women, you, out of shame, you don't want to come forward and you don't want to seek that help. But I guess I'm living proof that you can do it yourself.
We see ourselves in other women, and it gives us that power and that encouragement to be able to push through our own challenges.
She's just the whole package, she really is, but she also has authenticity about her and compassion plus strengths.
So it's nice to be shown the way almost by someone that's been there and done it and had their own tragedy in their lives, along with successes.
With these people coming forward and direct messaging me, that's their first powerful step.
Well, sign me up.
So this is how I launched my second business. The values remain the same: passion, integrity, and delivery. And I really feel that in life, you can do anything. You can see challenges as possibilities, and don't be ashamed of what goes on behind closed doors, because I'm living proof that this has not affected my career. So what I've done for each and every one of you, because I'm not a published author, but I am good at creating things, is I've created a magazine which we've put on everyone's chairs today, which explains a little bit more about my story and the journey and how you can become involved. But it also is a takeaway and a learning for everyone in this room to dig deep the way I have over the last decade and a half of my life, to really, truly find myself, what I want to do and where I want to go. And I believe that to understand your future, you 100% need to understand your past. And to reach your true potential, you have to have courage. And a part of this exercise is 2 pages, which you can do over the weekend or even with your teams. We do them with corporate teams all the time. It takes you back 5 years to see where your journey is and where it projects forward. And so what I'm going to do now is share some very raw, emotional images of my life over the last 5 years, how I stepped into my true power while I have been running a global business, while I have been dealing with up to 8 times a year being pulled before the court process to protect my child and to actually make sure that she had a safe environment to grow up in, that she was inspired, that she was empowered, and she was proud of who she is. Because I'm a big believer that we are the next generation and we need to teach people how to behave, how to interact, and we also need to put a stake in the ground when things go wrong. So, this is me, which was very unexpected. This is 2013. Hopefully, can we click that back? Sorry, Claire. This is 2013, just one more. And I was due on a plane to London for a big client meeting. And I was flying backwards and forwards to London because I was the sole provider for my daughter. And I'd go backwards and forwards for 3 days at a time. And those of you who have flown that flight, it's hectic. It's exhausting. And what happened was my appendix burst 24 hours before I was due on a flight. And unfortunately, I contracted septicemia in the hospital. I lost 8 kilos within 5 days, and I almost lost my life. Now, for a single mum responsible for not only the welfare of her child, but also 22 staff members and 10 freelancers, I'm running a multi-million-dollar business. This was a tough call. I really had to look at myself and what I wanted to do, and I had to step into my power. So one part of me that people saw was the glamorous side of events, But what was really going on behind the scenes was I wasn't allowed to leave the house. I was on doctor's orders. I had 6 months to recover. It was incredibly tough, but I made it through. I used to get dressed every morning. I'd walk down the stairs and I'd take phone calls, and the series of photos reflects that. The following year, you can see my daughter and I, obviously I look a lot happier and healthier, and so does she. We really focused on teamwork, and we focused on my recovery, but also her mental well-being, because she'd only grown up with a father who was doing things that other fathers weren't doing. And she saw me as a role model, and I had to be the most healthiest version of myself I could be to provide for her. The following year, I made some major decisions. We were still launching global brands. We still had global success, but something inside of me just didn't feel right. And I decided to make a few changes. This was an event that we did for Mercedes-Benz in Byron Bay. It's a multi-million-dollar event. We had people from all over Australia and New Zealand attending. It was a very proud moment in my career. And soon after, I had a phone call from a major corporation in New York who wanted to buy my business. They flew me backwards and forwards to New York. And of course, I only went for 3 days at a time. Should have learnt my lesson, but I didn't. And basically, they gave me a choice. Sell your business, become a part of a global corporation, or have your life back. I chose to walk away from the money, and the reason why I walked away from the money was I knew that there was a better life for me. And I also wanted to teach my daughter that if we truly stepped into our power and that we started doing things differently, life would be different. I downsized my business, and you can see my team down the bottom. Young, lean, incredible group of women, 6 of us from 22. We're still attracting the world's biggest brands. We ended up launching George Clooney's Casamigos tequila that year. It was incredible, but there were so many lows for my daughter and I at the same time. In this picture up here, we're doing an event for Misguided and Sephora. My daughter suffered from severe anxiety, and she would often come to work with me so she could see the dedication, and my heart was just breaking inside that this is what we were going through. The next year, I truly decided to step into my power. I really focused on meditation, I focused on wellness, and I focused on what we both needed to move on with our life. Because while I'm showing you all these glamorous images, the stalking, the harassment, the intimidation, despite AVOs, despite court orders, was still going on. I decided to become a lawyer. Physically, not professionally. I used to go to the family law court, and I would sit in there and I would listen to people's stories, and I'd have such empathy for them, because there are some horrific stories out there that you hear. But most importantly, I knew that the judge in our case had a personality. I needed to understand that personality to actually self-represent and win full custody of my daughter. And in 2017, I did that. It was an incredibly proud moment, and what it did was it put a protection around us. But what it also did was it gave us freedom. Freedom for what we truly wanted from our life. So what did we do? We went to Vegas. My daughter, I said, if you want to go anywhere in the world for New Year's Eve, what do you want to do? She chose Las Vegas. I said to her, who do you want to see? There are so many amazing acts. She chose Celine Dion. So here we are in Vegas, Celine Dion. I have to say, it was the most incredibly energetic crowd. People had flown in from all around the world to see Celine Dion. She's an amazing performer. But what resonated with both of us is, power to the people up here, but it was, she played this song about a brand new day and how, from challenges become strengths and weaknesses become possibilities. And we, together, as our small family unit, we completely resonated with this. And actually, the other day, she sent me a YouTube video of Celine in carpool karaoke, which I suggest you watch if you want a bit of a giggle. But it was a really defining moment for me, because I decided that the next year for me was going to be about love and adventure. So I still have my global business. I'm still attracting the same clients I always have, but all of a sudden, my daughter and I, we're happy. We stepped into our power. I found love, and my husband-to-be is somewhere in here, so hi. And life started taking on a new direction. And the reason why it took on a new direction was because of my values, because I was passionate about everything that I set my mind to. I still had my integrity, and I still knew how to deliver. So, where do you see yourselves in 5 years' time? I think it is such an amazing roller coaster to be on in life, and life is such a journey. And I believe that if you can't look at your past and accept who you are, you will never excel in your future. So I'm going to admit how old I'm going to be in 2024. It's a milestone. I'm going to be 50. And I remember taking a big, deep breath around that. Like, you know, what did I envision my life was going to be like when I was 50? And I have to say I'm on track. And I'm on track for many reasons. I started one business, which I loved. I made my dreams a reality. I started another business, which is making an impact in ways I never thought was possible. So in 2024, my goal is to be a pioneer of people around the world. I want to inspire them. I want to encourage them to be the best versions of themselves. I also want to empower people to truly step into who they want to be, because life will always throw you challenges, but you need to view those challenges as possibilities, because I could have played the victim. My daughter could have played the victim. We chose not to be victims. We chose to rise like phoenixes and live the life that we truly deserved. And I feel that with corporate life, it applies. All you need is strong values. All you need is that passion within you. All you need is to trust your gut instinct, because I'm living proof that anything is possible. You can survive anything. So a final note from me, because I love quotes, and you're welcome to take out your phone. There are 3 quotes that I say are my live or die. And I think that at various parts in your life, you will find that these will really resonate. The first one is, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself and in your way of thinking. Now, a year ago, I decided that we were going to make a sea change. I packed up our family home, I stripped back our belongings, and I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Bondi. Why? Because I wanted to live simply. I wanted to understand if I had less, would life deliver more? It delivered in so many different ways, and it taught me the most valuable lessons when we moved into our family home again last weekend. Because what I recognised was we don't need all these things that we're surrounded for. All we really need is a happy heart and a happy life. The second one I say to everyone in the office all the time. It's brilliant. When things aren't working, the universe is trying to save your ass. Don't look at things and go, I'm so frustrated. Look at them and go, well, there's a reason why this is not working. Does it align with my values? Is the first question you should ask yourself. And if it doesn't, your ass is definitely being saved. And the third one is, when you get tired, learn to rest, not quit. There are so many times in my life, with everything that I've been through, I could have given up. I could have just walked away. But I never did that, because I knew I was going to survive the situation. So when you get tired, just rest. It is so important. Take a moment, meditate, walk, get out in nature, see a friend, go have a drink, whatever it is, but do not give up. So that's it from me. I hope that you've learnt something from my journey. I hope that I've inspired you in some way, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for listening.